In Silicon Valley, Elizabeth Holmes was hailed as a genius, a visionary who could revolutionize blood testing and transform healthcare as we know it. But behind the facade of her company, Theranos was a web of deception and fraud that fooled investors out of over $600 million. In this video, we delve into the rise and fall of Theranos, the company once worth $9 billion, and the story of a CEO who would stop at nothing to achieve her goal, even if it meant putting lives at risk. Holmes founded the company in 2003 with the promise of revolutionizing blood testing with a finger prick from the comfort of your own home. But what began as a startup with lofty goals ended up being one of the biggest frauds in history. Now, the US Attorney's Office has indicted Holmes on federal wire fraud charges, and the story of Theranos has become a morality tale of manipulation and a CEO who would stop at nothing to achieve her goals. This is the story of a company once worth $9 billion, and the tale of how it all came crashing down in one of the worst disasters in Silicon Valley history. Elizabeth Holmes, born into a family with rich history and connections, knew from a young age that she wanted to be a billionaire. At age 18, she met Sunny Balwani, a man 20 years her senior who made a fortune during the dot-com boom. To Elizabeth, Sunny represented success and money, two things she craved. During a trip to Asia, Elizabeth witnessed the SARS outbreak and was struck with the desire to change the world. She locked herself in her room for 5 days, sleeping only 2 hours a night while working on a patent idea. Her idea was to create a wearable patch that could continually test the wearer's blood and deliver the right dose of medicine in real time. With a strong determination, Elizabeth dropped out of Stanford at age 19 and started her own company. The early days were far from glamorous, with the company's office located in a dangerous part of town known for shootings. Elizabeth's perseverance paid off when she received a $1 million seed investment from an old neighbor who had made money investing in Hotmail early on. Despite her impressive investors, Elizabeth struggled to convince those with medical expertise to invest in her company due to her lack of knowledge in the field. From a few semesters to multi-million-dollar funding, Elizabeth Holmes revolutionized blood testing with a simple prick of a finger. While tech giants like Mark Zuckerberg may have skipped university, Elizabeth faced a different challenge in the complex fields of medicine and chemistry. But by the end of the year, she had secured $6 million in funding for her innovative cartridge and reader system. No more syringes or waiting days for results. Fairness machines promised to perform tests on the spot and transmit information to labs via the internet. Moreover, Theranos aimed to shrink massive blood testing machines into a personal computer-sized box. However, this posed multiple challenges, such as component interference and inaccurate results from diluted samples. In 2006, they launched a new version called Edison, but it still fell short of accuracy. To speed up development, Elizabeth hired parallel engineering teams to compete against each other. She also conducted unethical pilot tests on cancer patients with Pfizer, despite knowing that the product didn't work. Doctors rely heavily on lab results, with up to 70% of their decisions based on them. False results can be deadly. Elizabeth, the founder of Theranos, lied to investors and clients about the effectiveness of her product, which was used in cancer trials. She even fired the CFO who discovered her deception. Elizabeth became obsessed with Steve Jobs and copied his marketing strategies, even recruiting former Apple employees to join the Fairness Board. The board included Don Lucas, chairman and mentor to the founder of Oracle. Elizabeth attempted to restructure the company shares to give herself majority voting rights, but an Apple employee on the board, AV, disagreed and raised concerns about testing issues. Despite speaking with the chairman, Don Lucas, AV resigned feeling his advice was ignored. Elizabeth was a master manipulator who used a low baritone voice to be taken seriously. She believed in finding people who believed in her, as having non-believers backing her would not result in a good situation. Theranos stacked mini-labs to carry out tests on third-party machines, hindering accuracy due to additional heat. Despite this, they promised their machines to the world, had a $140 million contract with Walgreens, and gave investors 10 times higher financial forecasts than their internal forecasts, all while operating without a CFO for the last 7 years. The board was stacked with high-profile names, including Henry Kissinger, George Shultz, and Jim Mattis. Elizabeth secured major investments from high-profile figures, including the Walmart brothers and Rupert Murdoch, giving Theranos a valuation of $9 billion and making Elizabeth worth $5 billion. The company's technology shortcomings were known, but employees were afraid to speak out due to fear of retaliation and legal consequences and were bound by confidentiality agreements. Elizabeth Holmes had 99.7% of voting rights in Theranos, but her actions showed she was willing to do anything to make her company successful. Elizabeth Holmes settled with the SEC in 2018, but still faces a criminal trial on 9 counts of wire fraud and 2 counts of conspiracy to commit wire fraud. She was banned from being an officer or director of any public company for 10 years. Sunny Balwani, her partner, still hasn't settled with the SEC, and both have pleaded not guilty, facing 20 years in prison. Elizabeth Holmes' story is a warning against the dangers of pursuing success at any cost and how it can lead to dishonesty and failure.